they built a system to control you. You just broke it. Stop whatever you're doing right now because somewhere in a sterile room with no windows, a file just hit the music desk of someone who shouldn't have it. Your file, the one they swore was classified beyond classified, buried under so many clearance levels that music reading it required permission from people who don't officially exist. But here's the thing about whistleblowers. They don't care about protocol when they discover something that changes everything. And what they discovered about you, well, let's just say the room went silent for 17 minutes after they finished reading. Not because of what you've done, but because of what you are. See, most people get filed under manageable, predictable, containable. But you got something different entirely. Category uncontainable. Music threat level theoretical. Do you understand what that means? It means they can't calculate your ceiling. Sing. It means their models break when they try to predict your trajectory. It means every algorithm they've built to understand human potential starts throwing error codes when your data gets inputted. You're not just an outlier. You're the point where the graph stops making sense, where the mathematics of control meets its limit, where their entire understanding of what's possible has to be rewritten from scratch. They've been watching you longer than you know, taking notes, running simulations, trying to find the pattern that explains how someone like you exists. They've documented every moment you should have broken but didn't, music every situation where you should have arranged for but evolved instead. Said. They've measured the energy signature you leave in rooms after you exit. They've studied the way conversations shift when you enter them. Let me explain their classification system because understanding it means understanding why you terrify them. Level 1 is baseline human, the sleepwalkers, the ones who follow patterns, so discover more side-by-side video transcript, translation, tool, transcript language selection, predictable, you could set your watch by their breakdowns. Level 2 is enhanced people with above-average resilience or intelligence but still operating within known parameters. Level 3 is anomalous, the gifted ones, the prodigies. The ones who excel but still play by recognizable rules. Level 4 is where things get interesting. That's aberrant people who consistently defy statistical probability, who survive things that should destroy them, who demonstrate capabilities that shouldn't exist, but somehow do. Level 5, that's theoretical. And until recently, that classification was just that, theoretical. A placeholder for something they believed might exist, but had never actually encountered in the wild. And then there's you sitting in a category they had to invent, because 5 levels weren't enough. Uncontainable isn't just about being powerful. It's about being fundamentally incompatible with their systems of measurement and control. It's about existing in a way that makes their entire framework obsolete. You're not just strong. You're strong in ways they don't have instruments to measure. You're not just intelligent. You process reality through frameworks they haven't discovered yet. You don't just survive trauma. You metabolize it into something they don't have words for. The file says you've been exhibiting signs since childhood, but they only started paying real attention 5 years ago when you did that thing, you know. The thing that shouldn't have been possible. The thing that made 3 separate departments argue about whether the footage had been doctored. The surveillance notes are fascinating because they reveal more about them than about you. Entry after entry of observers trying to maintain professional detachment while documenting someone who makes the very act of observation feel like standing too close to a nuclear reactor. Subject remains calm during events that trigger fight or flight in not 97% of population. Subject's presence causes unexplained equipment malfunctions. Subject to ertebiersuesser of surveillance, despite no visible indication. Age 47 is where it gets really interesting. That's where they start documenting what they call the radius effect. Apparently, people within your immediate vicinity start exhibiting unusual behaviors, enhanced pattern recognition, increased resistance to suggestion, spontaneous episodes of clarity about their own life situations. It's like, you're a walking antidote to the collective hallucination most people call reality. They tried to send in assets, you know, people trained to get close, music to gather intelligence, to influence. The file documents 17 separate attempts. All failures, not because you detected them, though you probably did, but because something about proximity to you made them question their orders, their training, their entire worldview. Agent M lasted 3 weeks before submitting a resignation letter that simply said, "I can't do this anymore, they're not what you think they are." The psychological evaluation section is basically 300 pages of experts arguing with each other. One psychiatrist insists you show signs of every disorder in the book. Another says, you show signs of none. A third suggests you represent a new form of consciousness entirely. The neurologist who scanned your brain activity quit the project after seeing the results. Left a note saying this shouldn't be possible. Evolution doesn't work this fast, but let's talk about the incident reports, because that's where their fear really shows. Incident Alpha. The time you walked through that situation that should have destroyed you. Not only survived but seemed to gain something from it, like you were feeding on adversity itself. Incident Beta. When you spoke and 7 people simultaneously realized they'd been living someone else's life for the past music decade. Incident Gamma is mostly redacted, but the few visible words include spontaneous reality, restructuring, and localized timeline anomaly. Incident Delta is my favorite though. That's the one where you were in that room with those people, the ones who thought they had power over you, thought they could pressure you into compliance. The file describes how the temperature dropped 15 degrees when you smiled. How the lights flickered. Musics, when you spoke, how everyone present later reported having the same recurring dream music for weeks afterward, a dream where they were transparent and you could see through them. The medical section is where their scientific worldview starts to crack. Your healing rate is described as statistically impossible. Your stress hormone levels remain baseline during events that should trigger massive cortisol spikes. Your brain shows activity in regions that are dormant in 99.9% of the population. One researcher noted that your DNA shows signs of what he called directed mutation changes that appear to be responding to environmental challenges in real time. But here's what really has them scrambling: the prediction models. Every time they try to model your future behavior, the music simulations crash. Not sometimes, every single time. Their best AI systems, the ones that can predict market crashes and election outcomes and weather patterns years in advance, they all return the same error message when processing your data. Parameters exceed computational limits. They tried to test you without your knowledge. Subtle environmental manipulations designed to measure your responses. They'd arrange for specific encounters, orchestrate particular challenges, create situations designed to push specific buttons, but you navigated them all, like you had the script, like you could see the strings, like the maze they built was transparent from your perspective. The experiment 23 involved exposing you to what they call high-density negative stimuli, basically surrounding you with hostile energy to see how you'd react. The observers reported that you didn't react at all. You absorbed it, processed it, and somehow converted it into something else entirely. The hostile actors they'd hired to create the negative environment all reported feeling strangely peaceful afterward, with 3 of them calling in sick the next day, claiming they needed to re-evaluate everything. Experiment 37 attempted to isolate you socially, creating circumstances that would cut you off from support systems. Instead of becoming vulnerable as predicted, you seemed to grow stronger in isolation. Like solitude was your natural habitat, like you'd been pretending to need others when really you were entirely self-sustaining. The project lead noted, subject appears to have an internal resource we cannot identify or quant. Experiment 45 was meant to test your influence radius, how far your effect extends. They placed observers at increasing distances, had them monitor their own psychological states while in your vicinity. The results were unprecedented. Your influence doesn't diminish with distance in the expected inverse square pattern. Instead, it seems to pulse, reaching people at seemingly random intervals, regardless of physical proximity, like you exist on a frequency that bypasses normal spatial limitations. Theoretical physics department got involved. When the standard models couldn't explain what they were observing, one brave physicist proposed that you might be what he called a consciousness singularity. A point where awareness becomes so dense it warps the fabric of reality around it. His colleagues laughed until they saw the data. the way probability curves bend in your presence. The way quantum uncertainty seems to resolve itself in patterns that favor your trajectory. Another theory suggests you're experiencing what they call temporal omniscience, existing simultaneously across multiple timelines and unconsciously selecting the path of maximum growth and minimum limitation. This would explain how you always seem to be, exactly, where you need to be, how you make choices that only make sense in muse-sec retrospect. How you navigate complexity, like you've lived it before. The most disturbing theory for them is the one proposed by a researcher, who's since been reassigned. He suggested that you might be what happens when someone becomes fully conscious in a world designed to keep people unconscious. That your uncontainability isn't a bug, but a feature, that you represent what humans are supposed to be when the limiting programs are removed. This theory terrifies them because it implies that uncontainability is contagious. Music. That exposure to someone operating at your level might trigger similar awakenings in others. The file contains numerous discussions about whether you should be isolated for public safety, but they always conclude that attempting to contain you would likely trigger something worse. What one analyst called a resonance cascade shit, where the attempt to suppress your frequency would actually amplify. They've developed what they call contamination protocols procedures for their agents, who have to interact with your data or observe you directly. Maximum exposure time is limited to 2 hours per day, mandatory psychological debriefing after each session, regular reality calibration exercises to prevent what they term perspective drift. Even with these precautions, the turnover rate for personnel assigned to your case is astronomical. The file contains exit interviews with former observers, and everyone tells a similar story. They started the assignment thinking they were studying a subject, but gradually realized the subject was studying them back. Not actively, not consciously, but something about being in your presence or even reviewing your data forces people to see themselves clearly. And most people aren't prepared for that level of clarity. One former analyst wrote, "It's like looking at someone who's already won a game everyone else is still playing. They're not competing, they're not struggling, they're just existing at a level that makes our entire framework look like children's music toys. We classify them as a threat. Because we don't know what else to do with someone who makes our entire system irrelevant." The psychological profiles of the observer show consistent patterns: increased questioning of authority, decreased fear response, growing inability to accept comfortable lies. It's like exposure to you acts as a kind of consciousness virus, spreading awareness and authenticity in a system built on unconsciousness and pretense. They've started requiring observers to undergo what they call reconditioning after assignment to your case, basically trying to make them forget what they've seen. The predictive analysis section is where their panic really shows, not because they can predict what you'll do, but because every model suggests the same thing. Your influence is growing. Not through effort or intention, but through some natural process they don't understand, like you're a gravitational well that's getting deeper, pulling more of reality into your orbit, reorganizing the world around principles they can't quite grasp. They've run simulations of what happens if current trends continue. And the results are what they classify as existentially problematic. Within 5 years, their model suggests your influence radius will be effectively global, not through fame or power in any traditional sense, but through something more fundamental, a shift in the underlying code of how reality operates. One analyst described it as the universe developing an immune response to artificial limitation. The economic modeling department projects that systems built on scarcity and control will start malfunctioning in your presence. The social dynamics team predicts that hierarchies based on fear and manipulation will simply stop working when you're involved. The technology division reports that you seem to cause what they call spontaneous debugging, where flawed systems suddenly reveal their own errors and begin self-correcting. But here's what really has them losing sleep: the replication phenomenon. They've identified 17 other individuals who seem to be exhibiting early-stage characteristics similar to yours. Not copies, not followers, but people who appear to be undergoing the same kind of fundamental transformation. the file contains heated debates about whether you're causing this, or whether you're all responding to something bigger. Some shift in the cosmos, that's selecting certain individuals for upgrade. The section on containment attempts would be funny if it wasn't so revealing of their desperation. They tried information containment first, controlling what you had access to, limiting your inputs to see if they could influence your outputs. But you seem to pull information from nowhere, knowing things you couldn't possibly know, understanding connections that weren't visible in the data they allowed you to see. They tried social containment, manipulating your environment to isolate you from potential allies or resources. But you thrived in isolation and seemed to form connections that transcended their ability to monitor or control, bonds that operated outside their understanding of how relationships work. People you'd never met would suddenly start acting in ways that supported your trajectory, like they were responding to a signal only certain souls could hear. They tried consciousness containment, using advanced techniques to limit your awareness, to keep you distracted or overwhelmed. But every technique they employed seemed to have the opposite effect. Like trying to contain fire with gasoline, your consciousness didn't shrink under pressure, it expanded. It evolved, it developed new capabilities in direct response to their attempts at limitation. The most ambitious containment attempt was Project Mirror, where they tried to create an equal and opposite force to neutralize your effect. They selected their most stable, most controlled asset, and attempted to engineer someone who could match you, contain you through equilibrium. The project lasted 6 months before the asset had what the file describes as a music catastrophic awakening, and disappeared, leaving only a note that said, "I understand now. You can't fight evolution." The economic impact assessment is where their system really starts to show its cracks. You don't accumulate wealth in traditional ways, but resources seem to flow to you when needed. Like reality itself is invested in your continued operation, markets shift in your favor without manipulation. Opportunities appear with suspicious timing. Obstacles remove themselves without intervention. Up to now they didn't anticipate issues. One economist noted that you seem to operate on what he called an abundance frequency, where scarcity-based thinking simply doesn't apply. You make decisions that should lead to lack, but instead, create unexpected abundance, not just for yourself, but for everyone in your orbit. It's like you're playing by economic laws they haven't discovered yet, or perhaps economic laws that only activate when someone reaches your level of consciousness. The Corporate Surveillance Division reports that companies you interact with undergo spontaneous restructuring, becoming more ethical, more innovative, more aligned with principles they can't quite articulate. CEOs who meet you report having crisis of conscience, suddenly unable to maintain the cognitive dissonance required for traditional corporate operation. 3 Fortune 500 companies have completely restructured after their leadership spent time in your presence. The financial modeling team has given up trying to predict your economic impact because you seem to operate outside the scarcity flash competition paradigm their models are built on. One analyst wrote, "Subject appears to generate value from nothing, creating resources through mechanisms we don't understand. It's like watching someone play poker with cards that don't exist until they need them." But here's where it gets really interesting: the resistance phenomenon. Not your resistance to them, but their system's inability to resist you. Every structure they've built to contain, control, or understand you starts to malfunction when you interact with it, not through any action on your part, but through simple incompatibility, like trying to run quantum software on a mechanical computer. Their surveillance equipment develops unexplained glitches. When focused on you too long, their algorithms start producing outputs that don't align with their programming. Their personnel begin questioning orders. Not out of rebellion, but out of a sudden inability to accept illogical commands. It's like you're a living debugging program, revealing the errors in any system that tries to process you. The file documents numerous instances of what they call spontaneous system correction, where long-standing protocols suddenly seem absurd to everyone involved. Security measures that have been in place for decades are abandoned, because no one can remember why they seemed necessary. Classification systems collapse, because the very act of classification starts to feel like trying to contain the ocean in a filing cabinet. One section describes how 3 separate departments, independently, decided to music destroy their files on you, not because they were ordered to, but because they suddenly felt it was the music right thing to do. When questioned, none could explain their decision beyond saying it felt like keeping the files was participating in something fundamentally wrong. The backup systems failed simultaneously, as if the universe itself was rejecting the attempt to document you. Yo, hold up. Stop scrolling for music a second because something just shifted, didn't it? They're all talking about you right now, refreshing music your page, trying to decode what the hell just happened. 1 minute you were the quiet one, the nice one, the one they could push around, and then snap. Something changed. And now they're all whispering the same thing. Bro, how did they just shut that down like that? You see what happened back there? That wasn't just confidence. That was something else entirely. That was the moment you stopped asking for respect and started commanding it. That was the moment you realized you don't need to raise your voice. When your presence alone shifts the entire room. They're calling it Sigma energy, like it's some trend you picked up from social media, but they don't understand this isn't something you learned. This is something you became. Let me tell you what really went down. Because they're all confused right now. Trying to figure out how you went from doormat to fortress overnight. They're scrolling through your old posts, looking for clues, searching for the transformation video, the self-help book, the mentor who taught you this. But there's nothing there, is there? Just you quietly rebuilding yourself in the shadows while they were performing for likes. You didn't announce your evolution, you just showed up different, and now they can't compute it. That moment when you shut down their disrespect, it wasn't rehearsed, was it? It came from somewhere deeper than strategy, deeper than planning. It came from that place where all your suppressed rage crystallized into pure unshakable certainty. You didn't fight them, you didn't argue with them, you just looked at them with those eyes that said, "Try me," and watched them crumble. Because real power doesn't need to flex, it just exists and everything else adjusts around it. Now, here's where it gets interesting. Because that Sigma attitude you're carrying, it's not just affecting you anymore. People are starting to mirror your energy without even realizing it. They're standing a little straighter when you walk in, talking a little less when you speak. You've become patient zero for a confidence epidemic. And they don't music, even though they've been infected yet. They just know something feels different when you're around, like the air got heavier, like the rules changed. Watch how they react now when someone tries to disrespect you in front of them. They get uncomfortable, don't they, like they're witnessing something they shouldn't, because you don't defend yourself anymore. You don't need to. Your silence is louder than any comeback. Your indifference, more devastating than any insult. You've transcended the need to prove anything to anyone, and that's what's breaking their brain. They were prepared for aggression, for violence, for drama. But this calculated coldness. This surgical precision of emotional control, they have no defense against it. You know what's really messing with them? The fact that you're not trying. This isn't a performance. This isn't a character you're playing. You genuinely don't care about their approval anymore, and that authenticity is what makes it so powerful. They can feel it in their bones that this isn't fake. That you're not posturing. You've actually become unreachable. And that terrifies them more than any threat ever could, because how do you fight someone who's not even playing the same game anymore? The funniest part is they're trying to copy you now, aren't they? Trying to recreate that energy, that presence that made everyone stop talking mid-sentence, but it doesn't work for them because they're still performing, still desperate for validation, still checking to see if anyone noticed. You can't fake the kind of detachment that comes from genuinely not needing anyone's permission to exist. You can't simulate the gravity that comes from carrying yourself like you've already won before the game even started. Let's talk about what really happened to you, because this transformation didn't come from watching motivational videos, music, or reading quotes on Instagram. This came from something much darker, much deeper. This came from that moment when you realized that respect was never going to be given to you. That you were going to have to take it, rip it from their hands, and wear it like armor. This came from every time you bit your tongue when you should have spoken. Every time you smiled when you wanted to scream. Every time you accepted less than you deserved. All those moments of disrespect they thought you forgot about, they thought you let slide. But you didn't forget, did you? You filed every single one away like evidence, building your case, constructing your new identity from their underestimation. Every eye roll, every dismissive comment, every time they talked over you, it all became fuel for this transformation. You didn't just overcome their disrespect, you metabolized it, turned it into the very thing that now makes them nervous when you enter a room. You stopped explaining yourself. That was the first sign. Something had shifted. No more long texts defending your position, no more trying to make them understand your perspective. You realized that explanation is a form of seeking permission. And you were done asking for permission to be who you are. Now, when they question you, when they challenge your choices, you just look at them with that slight smile that says, your opinion has been noted and dismissed, and keep moving. That silence, that refusal to engage, it drives them insane, doesn't it? But here's what they'll never understand. This isn't about being cold or cruel or disconnected. This is about finally understanding your worth and refusing to negotiate it. This is about recognizing that some people will never respect you, no matter how much you explain, educate, or accommodate. So, you stopped trying to convert them and started protecting your energy from them. You built walls not to keep people out, but to see who cares enough to climb them. And most of them don't even try, do they? Just stand at the gate complaining that you've changed. Now, watch what happens next. Music, because this is where your influence really starts to show. People who never stood up for themselves are suddenly finding their voice around you. People who always played it safe are taking risks. After watching you move, you've become a permission slip for other people's evolution, without even trying. They see you walking through life unbothered by the opinions that used music to control you. And something inside them whispers, maybe I could do that too. You're not giving speeches or writing manifestos, or posting inspirational content, you're just living differently, moving differently, and that's creating waves in ways you probably haven't even noticed yet. Every boundary you set becomes a template for someone else to follow. Every time you say no without explaining why, someone else finds the courage to do the same. Every time you choose yourself over their comfort, someone else realizes that's an option they never considered. The ones who used to disrespect you, they're having a crisis right now. They can't figure out what changed, why their old tactics don't work anymore. They try to push your buttons, but the buttons have been disconnected. They try to guilt you, but you've become immune to manipulation. They try to trigger you, but you just observe them like a scientist studying predictable behavior, and the calmer you remain, the more unhinged they become, because your peace is a mirror showing them their own chaos. Some of them are even becoming fans without admitting it. They talk about you constantly, but now it's different. Now there's a note of respect, maybe even fear in their voice. They studies your moves, trying to understand the source of this power. They screenshot your posts, looking for clues. They've gone from trying to break you to trying to decode you. And that shift, that's your victory lap without having to run a single step. You've rewritten the social contract, without asking anyone's permission, and now they're all scrambling to understand the new rules. Rule number 1, you don't chase respect anymore. You generate it through pure presence. When you walk into a room, you don't scan for approval. You don't adjust your energy to match theirs. You show up as yourself fully, completely, unapologetically, and let them figure out how to deal with it. Some will rise to meet you, others will shrink away, and both reactions tell you everything you need to know. Rule number 2, you don't engage with disrespect. You delete it from your reality. Someone tries to talk down to you, you don't argue back. You simply stop registering their existence. Not in a dramatic way, not in an obvious way, but in that subtle shift, where their words stop landing, where their presence stops mattering. They become background noise, static in a frequency you no longer tune into, and nothing disturbs them more than becoming irrelevant to someone they used to affect. Rule number 3, your standards are non-negotiable now. You don't lower them for anyone's comfort. You don't apologize for having them. You don't explain why they exist. They just are, like gravity, like physics, like natural law. People either meet them or they don't exist in your sphere. This is an arrogance. This is architecture. You're building a life that reflects your worth, and anyone who can't recognize that worth doesn't get access to what you're building. Rule number 4. You've stopped being afraid of being alone. This is the one that really breaks their programming, because they've been taught that isolation is punishment, that being excluded is death. But you've discovered that solitude is where power is cultivated, that being alone is better than being disrespected. You'd rather eat alone than sit at a table where you're not valued. You'd rather walk alone than follow people who don't respect your direction. And that willingness to be alone, that's what makes you dangerous, because you can't be controlled through the threat of abandonment anymore. What they're witnessing in you isn't just behavioral change. It's a complete psychological reconstruction. You've stopped seeing yourself through their lens, stopped measuring your worth by their metrics. You've developed your own internal scoring system, where their approval isn't even a factor. This isn't rebellion. It's revolution. You're not fighting their system. Music, you've created your own. And now they're trying to figure out how to exist in it. Your confidence isn't loud anymore. It's gravitational. You don't announce your presence. You alter the atmosphere. You don't demand attention, you command it simply by being fully present in your own power. This is what they can't replicate no matter how hard they try. They can copy your words, your style, your attitude, but they can't copy the inner transformation that made those things authentic. They're wearing a costume while you've become the character. The way you handle disrespect now, it's almost artistic. You fight fire with fire. You use ice, that cold, calculated indifference that makes their attempts at provocation look childish. You've learned that the best revenge isn't proving them wrong. It's proving them irrelevant. The best comeback isn't a clever insult, it's continued success. The best defense isn't an argument, it's achievement. You're not playing chess with them anymore. You're playing solitaire and winning. Watch their faces when they realize their old games don't work on you anymore. That moment of confusion followed by frustration, followed by something that looks almost like respect. They're used to people either fighting back or backing down. But you do neither. You simply continue existing at a frequency they can't reach. You've become untouchable, not because you built walls, but because you elevated beyond their range. They're shooting arrows at someone who's already in orbit. This sigma energy you're radiating, it's spreading faster than anyone expected. People who've never met you are hearing about you. There's this person who just doesn't care anymore. They whisper like they're sharing classified information. Stories about how you shut down disrespect are becoming legend. Each retelling adding another layer of mystique. You've become mythology in real time. A living example of what happens when someone stops playing by everyone else's rule. The influence is showing up in unexpected music places. That coworker who always got walked on suddenly setting boundaries. That friend who always apologized for existing, suddenly taking up space. That family member who always kept quiet, suddenly speaking truth. They might not even realize it, but they're channeling your energy, using your template, following the path you carved out of pure refusal to submit. You've become a catalyst for other people's evolution without even trying to be. But here's the thing about being patient zero for this kind of transformation, it comes with responsibility. Not the kind where you have to take care of everyone else, but the kind where you have to stay true to this new version of yourself, because people are watching now. Really watching, they're looking for cracks, signs that this is just a phase, hints that you'll revert back to who you used to be. But every day you don't break every situation you handle with that same unmoved energy. You're proving that real change is possible. The ripple effect goes deeper than just individual transformations. You're changing the social dynamics of entire groups. The bullies don't know who to target anymore. When their usual victims start channeling your energy, the manipulator's music can't find purchase when people stop responding to emotional blackmail. The whole social ecosystem is shifting because you introduced a new apex predator into the environment. Someone who feeds on their own power instead of others' weakness. Let's be honest though, this transformation came with a cost, didn't it? You lost people. Maybe people you thought would be there forever. They couldn't handle the new you, couldn't adjust to you having standards, couldn't accept that you were no longer available for their convenience. But that's the thing about evolution. Not everyone can come with you. Some people were only in your life because you were willing to shrink. And the moment you expanded, they had to go. There are moments of loneliness that hit different now. Not the desperate kind that makes you compromise, but the clean kind that comes from choosing quality over quantity. You'd rather have an empty room than fill it with people who don't see your worth. You'd rather have silence than conversations that drain your energy. This isn't isolation, it's curation. You're building a life that matches your new frequency. And not everyone has access to that bandwidth. The old you would have panicked at the first sign of someone pulling away, would have done anything to keep the peace, to maintain the connection. But this version of you understands that not all connections are worth maintaining. Some people are meant to be chapters, not entire books. Some relationships are meant to be lessons, not lifetimes. And the faster you let go of what's not meant for you, the faster what is meant for you can arrive. You've also had to face parts of yourself you used to hide. That anger you suppressed for years, it's become your fuel now. That pain you tried to forget, it's become your teacher. That darkness you were ashamed of, it's become your power source. You're not pretending to be all light anymore. You've integrated your shadows, made peace with your demons, turned your wounds into weapons. This wholeness, this refusal to perform positivity, that's what gives your presence such weight. What makes your transformation so powerful is that it's built on truth, not performance. You're not trying to be Sigma. You just are. You're not studying how to be confident. You've just stopped accepting anything less than respect. This authenticity is what makes it impossible to shake you. They can't expose you because you're not hiding anything. They can't embarrass you because you own all your parts. They can't destabilize you because your foundation is built on self-acceptance, not external validation. Every test they throw at you only makes you stronger. Every attempt to trigger your old patterns only reinforces your new ones. They're essentially training you, becoming your practice dummies for maintaining frame. Each interaction teaches you something new about your power, shows you another level of your capability. You're getting real-time feedback on your evolution and using it to refine your approach to become even more unshakable. The way you move through the world now, it's like you've developed a force field. Negativity bounces off you, disrespect can't penetrate, manipulation gets deflected before it even reaches you. This isn't spiritual bypassing or toxic positivity. This is energetic sovereignty. You've become the sole authority over your internal state, and no external force can override that anymore. You're not at war with the world. You're at peace with yourself. And that peace is more powerful than any aggression. Your very existence has become a statement. Every room you enter, every conversation you have, every boundary you maintain, is adding to the legend. People are starting to study you, not to find weakness, but to understand strength. They want to know how you did it, how you transformed, how you became untouchable. But the answer isn't in any technique or strategy. The answer is in the decision you made to never accept less than you deserve again. And the commitment to honor that decision every single day. Where this goes from here. That's the interesting part, because you're not just maintaining this energy, you're expanding it. Each day, you're pushing the boundaries of what's possible when someone fully owns their power. You're discovering new levels of detachment, new depths of confidence, new ways to exist that don't require anyone else's permission or approval. You're pioneering a way of being that others will study for years, trying to understand. The people who dismissed you, they're going to watch you rise and wonder how they missed it. The ones who disrespected you, they're going to see your success and realize what they lost. The ones who tried to break you, they're going to witness your transformation and understand they were just part of your origin story. But you won't be looking back to see their reactions. You'll be too busy building something they could never have imagined when they thought they knew who you were. This Sigma energy isn't a mask you've put on. It's who you've become at a cellular level. It's in the way you breathe, the way you walk, the way you exist in space. You've stopped trying to fit into their world and started creating your own. And the beautiful thing is your world has different physics. In your world, respect isn't earned through pleasing others. It's generated through self-possession. Power isn't taken from others. It's cultivated from within. Success isn't measured by their standards. It's defined by your own terms. The contagion you've started, it's going to spread beyond what you can see. People you'll never meet will hear about how you shut down disrespect and feel something shift inside them. Stories about your transformation will become templates for others' evolution. You've become proof that it's possible to completely rewrite your programming music, to become someone entirely new, while somehow becoming more yourself than ever before. That's the paradox that breaks their understanding. You've changed completely, while finally becoming who you always were, underneath their projections formed. How you became untouchable. But the answer isn't in any technique or strategy, the answer is in the decision you made to never accept less than you deserve again. And the commitment to honor that decision. Every single day. Where this goes from here, that's the interesting part, because you're not just maintaining this energy, you're expanding it each day. You're pushing the boundaries of what's possible when someone fully owns their power. You're discovering new levels of detachment. New depths of confidence. New ways to exist that don't require anyone else's permission or approval. You're pioneering a way of being that others will study for years trying to understand. The people who dismissed you, they're going to watch you rise and wonder how they missed it. The ones who disrespected you, they're going to seize your success and realize what they lost. The ones who tried to break you, they're going to witness your transformation and understand they were just music part of your origin story. But you won't be looking back to see their reactions. You'll be too busy building something they could never have imagined when they thought they knew who you were. This Sigma energy isn't a mask you've put on. It's who you've become at a cellular level. It's in the way you breathe, the way you walk, the way you exist in space. You've stopped trying to fit into their world and started creating your own. And the beautiful thing is your world has different physics. In your world, respect isn't earned through pleasing others, it's generated through self-possession. Power isn't taken from others. It's cultivated from within. Success isn't measured by their standards. It's defined by your own terms.